How to stop overthinking using Newton's third law. Yes, that's what the title actually says. Now, what does Newton's third law say? It says that for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. Now, if you try and control your mind, what do you think your mind is going to try to do? Your mind is going to try and control you back. But then if you learn how to negotiate with your mind, then your mind is going to learn how to negotiate with you. But there's two important steps that come with the negotiation and Newton's third law. And that's when our good friend, the A&A method, comes in. And the A&A method says you want to accept, you want to negotiate, and then you want to ask. Let me explain. I'm walking to work now and I just realized that the A&A method is like saying the ana method, which means the me method in Arabic. And this is important to remember because these are conversations you're going to be having with yourself. Anyways, on to the first step. Now, the first thing is you want to accept. Accept, accept, accept. Accept the fact that this is how you feel. Accept the fact that these emotions exist. Because how can you face an emotion or a feeling if you don't even acknowledge that the emotion or the feeling exists? And I know it's frustrating, it's so annoying. Why are we getting these irrational thoughts? Why do we feel this way? And then we might even have the urge to judge ourselves for feeling this way. But the more you judge yourself for feeling a certain way, the more you question whether or not you have the right to feel this way, the more you're gonna keep overthinking about the same thing over and over again. So just accept it. Tell yourself, I'm being an irrational being or maybe a rational being, and I have these feelings and emotions that I don't want to feel. And now once we've accepted that this is how we feel, we're ready to move on to negotiating with our mind. And now after we've accepted the fact that we have these feelings and emotions, which I promise you is one of the most liberating feelings in the world. Maybe not at the beginning, but after a while you will start to go like, wow, I finally accepted that this is just how I feel. So after we've accepted this, we can move on to the second stage, which is the negotiating with your mind using Newton's third law. Now, like I said earlier, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So we don't want to control our minds because the more we try to control our mind, the more our mind is going to try to control us back. But what we want to do is we want to sit down with our mind. And by the way, when I say your mind, I just mean sit down with yourself. Sit down with yourself and negotiate with yourself. And that conversation can be done anywhere and however you want it to be. There's no right way to negotiate with yourself. Personally, I sit down with my journal and I write down everything that's bothering me. I write down all the feelings I have. I write down all the thoughts that I have. No matter if I think these feelings are rational, irrational, it doesn't matter. Just write it all out. And no one has to see that paper. You're the only person that's gonna have access to this information. And then after you've started to write out exactly how you feel and all the emotions that you're feeling, then you can start to negotiate with yourself and then try to start asking the right questions, which is the third stage. Now, in the third stage, when you're negotiating with yourself and you're learning how to ask the right questions, this might feel a bit weird at the beginning, especially because if you've never negotiated with yourself before, this is like getting to know a new friend that knows everything about you. So be patient with yourself. And now you might be thinking, Omar, how do I know if I'm asking myself the right questions? Now let me give you an example. Let's say you're going to meet a new group of people and you find yourself entering this overthinking loop where you're asking questions like, are they gonna like me? What are they gonna think of me? Are they gonna find me funny? And you find yourself asking these questions that have an answer that is completely outside of your control. That's when you wanna catch yourself. And you wanna tell yourself, if I sit down from today till after tomorrow trying to predict what someone is going to think of me, even if I'm deluded enough to convince myself that I know the answer, I will never truly know the answer. But you know what you can actually know the answer to? You can ask yourself, how can I present the best version of myself? Now that's the right question to ask because that's something that you can actually control. Now, why is it important to ask the right question? Because if you find yourself trying to find the right answers to the wrong questions, then your mind is going to start to realize that you have no control over the answer that you're trying to find. And that's just going to lead to more and more overthinking. So whenever you find yourself entering these overthinking loops, just take a pause and ask yourself, am I really asking the right question? Now, as a quick recap, the A&A method says you want to accept, the feelings and the thoughts that you have, no matter how irrational they are, no matter how much you want to judge yourself for having these feelings, just tell yourself, this is how I feel. You don't need to tell anyone how you feel. Of course, if you have someone that you trust in and that you want to speak to about these feelings and thoughts, definitely feel free to do so. But you don't need to tell anyone about how you feel. Just accept, this is how I feel. Now, once we've accepted the feelings and the emotions, you want to learn how to negotiate with your mind using Newton's third law. You don't want to fight with your mind. You don't want to try to control your mind, because with every action comes an equal and opposite reaction. So the more you fight and the more you try to control your mind, the more it's going to fight back and the more it's going to try to control you. Now, once you've done that, you want to make sure that you're asking the right question. And what that means is that you're asking the questions that you can actually know the answer to. Anyways, I hope that you enjoyed the conversation and that I've given you something to think about. And like I always say, this is the Debo's way, find your own way. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you soon. Peace!